From beautiful downtown Sacramento, it's time for Beach Blanket Fort Bingo.
Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. Beach Blanket, Beach Blanket Fort Bingo, Fort Bingo. Spazzy's got a show when you really want to know what's going on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Beach Blanket, Beach Blanket Fort Bingo, Fort Bingo. Art and music golden blue and your favorite comics too. Grab a spot and settle in, 'cause it's high time we begin. Beach Blanket Fort Bingo Podcast. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. I am your host, Steve Schnee. On this episode, I get to chat with two of my musical heroes, Reg Mombassa and Peter O'Doherty. I first heard them in 1979 as members of Australian band Mental as Anything, and ever since then, I've been a fan and supporter of everything that they've done. And it only took me about a year to find out that they were indeed brothers. Now, during a Mental's hiatus, they formed their own duo in 1990 called DOG Trumpet. They officially left Mental as Anything in the year 2000 and have continued to release a series of fantastic albums ever since. And now they're here to chat about their latest release, Great South Road. So without any further ado, I'd like you to meet them. Ladies and gentlemen, Reg Mombassa and Peter O'Doherty, welcome to the Blanket Fort.
Hi,
Hello,
Stephen.
everyone.
That's Reg in outer space and Peter down on Earth. But before we talk about the latest album, I want to turn the wheels back a little bit. You came to prominence, of course, in Mental as Anything, as I mentioned. But was that the first band you guys played together in?
We
Yeah,
sort of jammed a bit in. Peter used to play in it with a couple of guys playing jazz in a band called Black Slats, and I occasionally played bass with them.
Mm-hmm.
And but that's probably the only band we vaguely played together in before the Mentals.
Okay, all of you were art students, and was the band initially, was it a serious project, or did you just expect to do it for fun for a year or two and then call it a day?
Well, we probably just expected to do it for fun for a while. I mean, I'd seen Martin and his friend Steve Coburn playing at an art student party, and I thought, they can both play and sing a bit. I wouldn't mind. So I approached Martin and started sort of jamming with him in a bedroom, and then we started playing with Steve, and we got a drummer, and then after we'd started playing live, sort of Steve lost interest a bit, and Peter replaced him as the bass player. This was 1977, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So by that time, we were getting a bit more serious because we were building up an audience. And then we started making some demos shortly after that.
Well, every member of the band had a stage name except for Peter. Now, Peter, did you just miss band rehearsal that day and they just never told you about it?
No,
We did have a couple.
I did have one.
Did you?
We all had various nicknames before the ones that were settled on for that first album. I was Ouzo Pork, and I was a little bit reluctant about putting that to print for the first album, which was probably a good move because I just reverted to my own name without having any other great imagination about anything better. And it sort of served me in the long run because, I didn't get saddled with a stupid name like Ouzo Pork. And also it's probably a little bit simpler just having one name rather than two.
Yeah.
Well, before I had Reg Mombassa, I was Dorky Bladder.
Dorky Bladder.
Yeah.
And before that, you were Brett Orlando.
Yes, Brett Orlando. That was pretty good. That's
Greedy was
horrible.
Labrador before Greedy, because he
That's
was
right.
like a Labrador, which fed into the name Greedy, no pun intended.
Same thing. He was called Labrador because Labradors are greedy.
And they slobber a lot. Slobbering, greedy sort of oaths. No, he wasn't an oath. We're all oaths.
Well, Reg, of course, your name is Chris, but how did you choose the name Reg Mombassa? Because to me, that's one of the coolest names in rock.
Well, I just thought it was amusing to have, like, Reg is like a, in sort of America, and I mean, sorry, in Australia and England, Reg is like a fairly sort of basic working class truck driver's name. And I thought,
Yeah.
oh, that's funny having that first name with an exotic, you know, place name from Africa as a second name.
I lived with my parents at the time that Reg was at art school in a place called Curl Curl, which is one of the northern beaches in Sydney, a surfing beach, Curl Curl. And our next door neighbour's name was Reg. He was a carpet layer, and he was kind of one of those really sort of tough, really incredibly optimistic kind of guys. He surfed, his whole family surfed, his little kids surfed, his wife surfed, and he was probably, he might have actually been an influence on that name.
Gravity make us all fall down, bang, bang on the ground. Keep us in a state of fear of falling. Keep us in a state of fear of falling. Whoa, gravity, you've been spinning me round. Whoa, gravity, you've been dragging me down.
After several years of success in your homeland, and even in, you had this hit with Live It Up, but then you guys went on hiatus for a few years. Martin had already established a career outside of the Mentals, and you both formed Dog Trumpet and released your first album, Two Heads, One Brain. First off, where did the band name come from?
Well, we were having trouble thinking of a name, and it was an image that I'd been doing for Mambo of like a combination of a trumpet and a dog and a jet engine type of thing. And I had, so I had the image for it. We thought, that'll do. And, so we kind of just went with it, really.
Before we talk about the new album, I'm not going to make you guys go through tons more Mentals history and Dog Trumpet history, but I do want to go through, and I'm going to show you albums, and I just want your first thought when you see them. And this is the Dog Trumpet catalog. So we're going to go with Two Heads, One Brain from 1991. What are your first thoughts?
Beautiful hair.
Yeah, early.
Yeah.
Early, beautiful hair.
Vintage.
Kiss a Gun Down, the from 1992.
Ridiculous cover.
Yeah.
Gee, you've even got the EPs, Steve.
Yep.
Oh, there's another EP, Strangebrew. Well, that's the beautiful cover done by Martin Sharp, who did the cover for Disraeli Gears for Cream.
Oh, he was the guy who. Oh wow, that's fantastic.
He died now, unfortunately, a few years ago, but he was like the most well-known Australian artist, really, because that Cream cover, just about every boy in the world of a certain age would probably have that album. So
absolutely.
Martin was a very interesting guy. He died only a couple of years ago, and he went to London in the 60s, and there was a bunch of them. They made a magazine called Oz magazine, OZ magazine, and they ended up getting in trouble and going to court for what was it for, Reg? It was
smutty images and behaviour.
Yeah,
nudity
countercultural activity. But Martin Sharp, he when he arrived in London, he was in a nightclub, and he was introduced to a guitarist, and he didn't know who the guitarist was, didn't know much about the music scene in London, and the guitarist said, he plays in bands and plays music, plays blues, and so Martin said, well, I write a bit of poetry, and he wrote down a poem on a napkin and gave it to the guy, and it was Eric Clapton, who was at that stage just starting Cream, and the words he gave him were the words to Tales of Brave Ulysses.
Wow.
So Martin was a co-writer on that song, and ended up doing record covers for them, and he also did a lot of posters for people like Jimi Hendrix and Donovan, and just being in London at that 60s time.
He also kept getting royalties for that I think it was a B-side of Strangebrew, I think, was it?
Might have been, or White Room. I'm not sure. Yeah.
But he kept getting royalties until he died, which was good for him.
So he's good mates with all those sort of people, and became good mates with them.
Yeah. So the next album, Suitcase from 1996.
Oh,
Beautiful.
that's got the beautiful curtain from our lounge room in the background
And lovely alfoil hats
and alfoil hats.
or aluminium
Oh,
hats, as you
and the
aluminum hats.
photograph was taken by my wife Martina.
Now, do you still have those curtains?
No, I just had a look. We don't.
You're looking over to your right, but you're in outer space. It's a bit odd. Like, what's going on there?
I was looking for a telescope. At my
Oh.
lounge, which is down below.
Right.
Looking down.
Sit down, you make me feel nervous. I'm on my feet, I just can't sit still. I lost my rhythm to the windscreen wipers. They wouldn't stop, though it wouldn't rain. For too long now, there's distance between us. Too little is more than enough. All of your faces look good. Sad ones do just what they should. Now where was I? I've lost my place again.
That's a picture of me and my brother when I was 6 and he was a baby.
Now, was
that
this
Reg painted many years later. No, Reg was painting that sort of stuff. Oh, like a long time ago. That was probably painted back in the 70s sometime.
Yeah, I was about 23 when I painted that.
wow? Okay, then we're going to go to 2007, Antisocial Tendencies.
Yeah, and there's the reel-to-reel 16-track recorder that we use. It was in the second bedroom or third bedroom of my last house that I lived in, and all of our records, apart from the first one in total, was made in a recording studio, but all the rest of them have been made at home, in my own little bedroom studios. And at that stage, I was using a 16-track half-inch tape recorder to make the albums, and the recording head was wearing out, and those recording heads were getting very rare. There was only about 2 or 3 that I could actually find in Australia. So after that, I ended up getting a computer and started recording with Pro Tools. Went over to the dark side, and actually, it's been it was a big advantage because it's much easier with the computer in a lot of ways. Although you do sort of trade off some of that warmth of the good tape sound from that you'll hear on the earlier albums.
Right.
But I think
recordings.
with technology and recording, it's really just all about your ears. It's the same as art, it's using your eyes. It's pretty basic and elemental, So if it looks good or sounds good, that's really your yardstick.
Oh, we did record a couple of things on Suitcase. We did a couple of things in the studio, but just about everything else we've done in Peter's bedroom.
Bits and pieces, but even Suitcase was mainly done on a home recorder.
Yeah, there's only a couple of tracks.
Then the next album, of course, is River of Flowers from 2010.
That's a bus stop just down the road from our place.
Yeah, that's us. That's us on tour at the bus stop, waiting for the bus that never came.
Waited to get the bus back home, which is half a mile away.
Yeah, so we gave up touring at that stage and just decided we go away for weekends every now and then. That's why we haven't played in Sacramento lately.
Yeah, I know. I missed you the last time, unfortunately. And of course, Medicated Spirits. This is a 2 CD set, and it's autographed by 2 of the members of the band, and that came out in 2013.
Yeah, well, a double album. We had a lot of songs at that stage, a bit of an overflow. We decided that we'd go double album, and we made a vinyl version of that. Is that what? No, that's the CD version. We have a vinyl version too. So again, just recording all at home. There's several different people playing drums on that album. We were using different people for the live gigs, and so I think my son Declan plays drums on a couple of the songs there, and Ian Shedden plays on a few of those songs, who played with us live for about 4 years and unfortunately passed away in 2017. Had a terrible heart attack. So we haven't really played live a lot lately because we've got a good band. We've got a guy called Bernie Hayes playing bass with us, and Jim Elliott, who used to be in a band called The Cruel Sea. You probably know The Cruel Sea, Stephen. Yeah. So it's a good band, but we haven't had an opportunity like most people in the world. It's been really tricky with the COVID to get out there and play anyway.
Maybe we don't need to be so angry about so many things. Maybe we don't need to be so crazy in the pursuit of belief. Things that you may never see. All of those gods and ghosts and goblins streaming round the fire. All of those fairies and demons churning in your mind, messing with your mind.
Let's chat about the latest album, Great South Road, which was released a little less than a year ago. Where does the title come from?
Great South Road is a song on a couple of albums back. It's a song of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And the Great South Road was the road between Auckland and Wellington in New Zealand.
Mm.
And we lived on the Great South Road in a suburb called Papakura when I was a small child, and Pete was already a baby in that suburb.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of also a metaphor for the human race going south, heading towards hell, basically.
You guys predicted that, didn't you?
Yeah, we predicted that.
The album is certainly one of, if not your finest album to date. What inspired this batch of songs?
I mean, we're always writing songs. It's something that would, it's a bit like painting and doing art. It's just something you fill up your life doing, So, we keep a fairly semi-regular pattern of recording and getting together. Oh, what are you saying, Reg?
So we don't really do concept albums where there's one theme.
We do semi-concept albums with two themes.
Yeah, several themes.
Or several. Yeah, that's very conceptual. What you do tend to get is our separate approaches that we have. I think we definitely have a real brothers thing. The way we play together, we understand each other, and we, there's a whole kind of overlap in the kind of music that we love. And then there's things to this. I mean, I probably like a fair bit of jazz that Reg might not listen to, and then he would listen to probably more country blues that I didn't pay as much attention to. But then but a lot of that stuff, we love all that stuff. There's a lot of music in there going right back to country, folk, blues, rock and roll, psychedelic, the time that we grew up in the 60s and 70s. So that all feeds into the songwriting. But then we have our own separate sort of approaches and themes that we tend to do. And I, in a way, I think my themes tend to be probably a little bit more personal, reflective of an emotional or relationships, emotional states. And then Reg is probably a little bit more esoteric and metaphysical, historical. What do you see? Chris, got anything to say about that?
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. Yeah, no, I don't really have feelings as such, so I can't really write about that.
He says that, but he actually does write some quite romantic tunes at times. I mean, "Walk to the Moon" on this album, Great South Road, is a very romantic song.
How long would it take to walk to the moon if they could build a road? What would you say if I was to say you're the best in the world? What would you say if I asked you to walk to the moon?
Basically elaborating on what Peter said, you do write from these completely different angles, and I think that's what really makes the Dog Trumpet sound, because it's very unique. Now, are you both open to each other about making suggestions on what to add, or no?
No, go keep talking.
No. I mean,
I was listening.
Are you open? Are you pretty open to each other about making suggestions?
No, well, we do contribute to things like the arrangements, but we're not going to say cut out all those lyrics because they stink, or
Yeah.
or don't play that melody because it's a horrible melody. It's more in terms of arrangement, or it's the actual parts we contribute.
Mhm.
sort of
And I think
guitar
what
part.
we do, which was that to our advantage, is that we're not playing to the sort of any record company that's making demands on us for an album due in whatever month it might be of the year. So you've got under that pressure to sort of cough up an album, which I think a lot of people do. They sign a deal and they've got this big deal to make a lot of albums, and that means that you're probably you've got a few good songs in there, but you're then probably whacking a fair bit of filler in there. I mean, I've been really trying hard to over the last few albums to make them so that every song sort of belongs there and sits with all the other songs and makes a really cohesive record. And I think what the good thing is that we record a lot of songs. There's quite a few songs that don't make it to the final album. So in a way, it's just a matter of using time to be a part of the editing process.
In the Mentals, both of you would occasionally let Martin sing your songs. Are there times in Dog Trumpet where you Reg, you might think Peter might sound better on a song, or Peter, is there a song that you think that Reg might?
We generally sing our own songs.
Okay.
Neither of us have got fantastic voices, so there's no point saying let's get a good singer to sing this one,
or get each other to sing our songs if we're not very good singers. Why would Reg get a not very good singer to sing his song? Well, it's the same with me.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is, we sort of, you kind of want to sing your own songs. You understand how to do it, and we do sing on each other's songs and do lots of, there's times when there's a lot of harmonies or backing vocals. So that happens a fair bit. Back on the Mentals, in the Mentals albums, we did have Martin sing a few of our songs. He was an excellent singer, so it was interesting to hear him singing. But it's not an easy thing to give up a song to another person in your band to sing. It's a bit odd for us, because we're a bit fixed.
Your previous album, Medicated Spirits, was a double album. When you started recording this one, did you record a lot of tracks and just whittle it down, or you focused on these 12?
We pretty much focused on these 12.
Yeah, these ones came up, didn't they? Although there was a couple of other ones which were pretty good, and we could have put them on the album, but we thought we just keep it at 12 rather than 14 songs. It starts to get a bit of a earful, doesn't it? When that's what we did with the last album. We had those extra 2 or 3, and then it became 4 or 5, and so we thought, oh bugger it, we'll make a double album. Yeah. But this time we thought keep it shorter and sharper.
I'm trying to get out. I'm trying to stay in. The wallpaper is peeling. I'm trying to get out. I'm trying to stay in. The wallpaper.
While you certainly don't betray the influences from your homeland, there seems to be a lot of American music influences in your music. Who would you cite as some of the biggest musical influences to the Dog Trumpet sound?
Well, for me personally, heaps and heaps of stuff. But if you're asking about the biggest sort of musical influence or star of the 20th century, it'd have to be Bob Dylan. Even though we don't sound that much like Bob Dylan, but I think he's one of the greatest artists in terms of songwriter and singing and whatever. And all his music is pretty much based on American roots music, which I really like.
But look, also being growing up in the 60s and 70s, we were hearing a lot of music from the States and a lot of music from England on the radio. Was really like a big split between the two, and Australian bands were doing things like covering a lot of those songs that they would hear. So we were getting all the great stuff from out of England, the 60s and 70s. So all those bands like the Kinks, the Trogs, the Small Faces, the Who, like such great bands. Not to mention the Stones, who are one of the greatest bands of all time, or the Beatles. So all that English stuff and all that blues stuff with Eric Clapton and John Mayall and the Blues Breakers and all those people who came through those bands and ended up in Led Zeppelin, etc. So that stuff, and I was a young teenager when Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple, and the Faces, the Small Faces turned into the Faces. I still think the Faces made a couple of the greatest albums in rock and roll sort of history, just for the musicianship and the sound of the recording. I think it was a beautiful to me, that's still, a great influence just to how to make a record and what to listen for and how all the instruments fit together. You know, you hear something like that album, Not As Good As a Wink to a Blind Horse, or the follow-up, Ooh La La, the Faces albums, and just the recording of that stuff is great. And I also love the sound, like just listening to the actual audio sound of things. There's jazz records from America in the late 50s and early 60s, when I think they just got that stuff down so beautifully, the actual recording of a musician playing drums or double bass or any other instrument. It's just so beautifully done, so I was listening to a lot of things, John Coltrane and Wes Montgomery and Thelonious Monk and all that kind of stuff. They made such great records, those guys.
Right.
So a lot of that stuff, so it's quite a wide range. And then in between all that, there's just all that pop stuff that was on the radio, like from Peter Sarstedt through to, it was so eclectic, wasn't it? The sound of the top 40 in 1968, 69, 70, 71. Incredible what you would hear. And you'd hear stuff from Jamaica.
We also really like, rocksteady and reggae from Jamaica too.
Yeah, just going to say, you hear all that Jamaican stuff. You'd hear country, so you could hear all the Jamaicans who are living in England making sort of all those Trojan records. We're making some fantastic things. So you could. It's amazing what you did hear. You could hear double barrel, David Ansel Collins, on the radio next to Wichita Lineman or something. So it was, a time that I don't think will come again, because everything is now very much separated and compartmentalized in the way you hear music.
Yeah.
And we also really like old American folk music and country music and English and Irish folk music as well. That sort of has influenced our sound to some extent.
And also, I was listening to a lot of, Stax records and all the sort of American soul stuff from the 60s. So it was and 70s, a really rich time, just and then you got the, Burt Bacharach and the whole pop things and all that stuff, very sophisticated, and again, beautiful music, a lot of that stuff, and great songwriting, and that classic way of, that songwriting, I think, is again what. I sort of just draw on all of that for the way I write songs. I like the not that you're looking for a formula or a self-conscious method of writing, but a lot of that stuff I think just feeds into the way you approach it.
Stay for too long. Stay for too long. It's just a feeling that I sometimes have. Stay for too long. Stay for too long. It's just a feeling that I sometimes have.
And did you find that videos are a great way to promote the music, since you're not able to tour?
With the film clips, I discovered how to make film clips over the last year and a half, and that's been a bit of a revelation, because before that we've had other people make the film clips for us, and it always gets you've got to spend a fair bit of money to make a clip and to make sure everybody gets paid properly, and so it's an expensive kind of process and takes a lot of energy, and you've got to be motivated to organize it and then follow through and do it. And and some of those clips are pretty good that we made, and some of them were not as strong as others. And I just discovered, my son showed me how to use iMovie, and now we've got iPhones or phones like with great cameras in them and movie cameras in them. You can basically make your own videos reasonably. It just takes a lot of thinking and energy, but I've really enjoyed it. I've been making it with my wife, filming, and we edit together. So it's just meant we've been able to, have 8 songs off the new album we've had video clips for. We've never done that before. And some of the albums we didn't, I think Antisocial Tendencies we released without even having one clip for it. So, it definitely helps, because without, as you say, without touring, and we've never really toured a lot outside of our own little patch here in Australia and Sydney and some of the states on the eastern states here in Australia. But apart from we played at South by Southwest a few years back. That was our first venture with DOG Trumpet overseas. But, in lieu of being able to go and tour a video clip, it's great. It really does. It really sort of just helps you just get your music out there to the invisible world that it's like doing
Yeah.
Facebook shows. It's an odd thing to do because we just sit here in this room that I'm in, and we do our shows from here where we do all the recording. I'm just sitting in my little music studio room, and so basically we do a lot of work from one small room, but you can sort of get out there to the world, and that's a great thing about technology. It's kind of a double-edged sword, technology. I still don't understand a lot of how it even works, why it works, and who's out there listening or not listening. But it, I think it's made a difference over the last year having this album released, and we just do Facebook shows and put out videos. So yeah, it's another way of getting across to people. Otherwise, we'd just be sort of playing up and down the coast of the east coast of Australia, and maybe not getting across to as many people. So it's been good.
Eleanor Rigby probably had a slightly better life than me. At least she owned a home and she went to church. That would provide some company. The Lonely Death Cleaning Company came along to clean up the mess left in my tiny flat after my lonely death.
Reg, I hate to do this to you. I know you've told the tale so many times, but the viewers watching this may not know what inspired the song Lonely Death Cleaning Company, because it's really a tragic song. And can you sort of explain what inspired it?
Yeah, well, it was just an article in the paper that I read, the local paper in Sydney, about a guy in Japan, who, I mean, it was about this one guy who had died, and the song is put sort of about him, but it's also more about. But the article was talking about the fact that a lot of people die lonely deaths in Japan because because they're not as connected to their families, and they work so hard that they don't have much outside of life. And the guy in the song, he had been a contract systems engineer, and he was late 50s or 60s. He died alone. He had been married, but the marriage had petered out. Had no real friends or relatives, and he wasn't getting much work, and I don't know, I think he might have had a heart attack or something, but anyway, his body wasn't discovered for months. And so they got these cleaning companies that specialize in the sort of, it's like a hazmat, forensic cleaning after a body is rotted in a room for 6 months. It makes a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
So it was a true story, basically. I mean, it happens here too. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Are there any particular songs on the album, now it's a year later, that you still feel close to, maybe ones that you feel is far more personal than the rest?
I don't know, not really. And the thing is, I find because I'm always writing songs, it's a sort of constant activity. Once you've done the album, it's almost like you sort of draw a line on that and you leave it behind, even though we might play some of the songs from it still. But we've been recording and writing and getting together and rehearsing new material, and we've now got a handful of songs started. We've been recording, so concentration tends to go down towards what we're doing now and what we're doing in the future. I feel that it was a pretty solid album, this album, Great South Road. A lot of songs on it that I think still stand up. And I mean, my favorite albums are the ones that, for myself too, like talking about stuff that you're influenced by, or the stuff that you really love, are the stuff that I was listening to when I was a teenager. And I can still listen to a lot of those albums still. I can still put a Doors album on, like a lot of people, and it still sounds fresh. It still sounds like really beautifully done, great songs, timeless, classic sort of songwriting, and so I think that's probably what we're trying to do, is just make songs that don't feel like they're pigeonholed by any era or time or fashion, or so I think these are on this last album, they're the sort of songs we can still be playing for as long as we're able to play, so
yeah.
Just around about midnight, as the moon slips off a cloud, I get so tired from staying up. When things get rough,
still, apart from maybe this most recent one, do you ever go back and pull out Suitcase or Two Heads, One Brain and maybe give it a spin to maybe familiarize yourself with it and maybe choose a song to add to your set?
No.
Usually, no. I mean, the only time you do that is usually if you're relearning one of the songs.
Yeah, look, every now and then you might, for whatever reason, you do go back and have a quick listen to a few things, but it's quite interesting. It can be quite revealing, about, oh, that was terrible. We could have done that better.
We should do it, because you actually, I mean, sometimes I forget some of the songs. I'll hear someone's playing the song and I'll think, gee, that sounds familiar, and then you'll realize it's yourself. Because I think between us, I think we've written 80 or 90 songs each, written and recorded 80 or 90 songs each now, but between the Mentals and Dog Trumpet.
Do you ever go back and listen to the Mentals albums? Or is that the same thing?
I mean,
again, because because we have been doing these Facebook shows, just the two of us, and from last year when the COVID hit, we've been like delving back into our songs that we wrote on the Mentals album, relearning them and playing. So some of those songs really haven't really looked at for literally for 35 years or more. So it's been pretty interesting going back to the first album, Get Wet, with the Mentals, 1979 released. And, we did, Reg wrote, I think, about 5 to 6 songs on our album. So we played a few of those over the last, last year. And it's been great going back into some of those songs. And some of those songs still are really fun and, enjoyable songs to dig up and learn and play. And they're quite interesting, because we were pretty young when we were writing those songs. I mean, I was 20 when we released our first album, or 21. Reg was a little bit older, in his 20s, but we were just like kids, so it's interesting going back and seeing what you were doing as kids, and there was some good songs in there on those albums.
Yeah,
it's quite difficult trying to work the chords out, your own chords that you can't remember what they were.
When you read some history, it never sounds too good. Centuries of misery, every page is soaked in blood. Well, it makes you wonder why you worry about every little thing. It makes you want to say you're sorry, I won't do that again. Overseas and elsewhere, there's trouble on the rise. The sun may not be shining on someone else's life today.
Now, just a few months after this album came out, I would say maybe in the midst of promoting this, all of a sudden, Live It Up by Mentals Anything was flying high on like the iTunes charts, and it became popular again in like England or Europe, Scotland. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened there?
Yeah, well, it was the Scottish football team, the Rangers. They sort of adopted it as their kind of de facto, team song, and it was sort of to do with the rivalry with the other Glasgow team, Celtic, or Celtic. And they had been actually they'd been playing Live It Up as well, and it was kind of as a way of insulting them in a way, I think, to start doing it. But then all their fans started playing it and singing along to it, so it just kind of suddenly topped the download, the iTunes chart or whatever.
Because that song was it was a big hit in the UK in 1986, 87.
86.
We made it about 85, but I think it was when the movie Crocodile Dundee was released in England, and that song was on the soundtrack, and it just became our big hit, in England. And for a lot of people in England, I suppose they would be thinking, that was that one hit wonder band from Australia, if they thought about it at all, which they probably didn't. But here in Australia, that was, I think, our 14th single, Live It Up. Yeah. So we had, we'd been going pretty hard before that. We had quite a catalogue, and I've been making a lot of records, and we did, after that we made more records. But it was a bit ironic because our first album, Get Wet, with the Mentals, released in 79. There was couple of songs off that we were getting reviews in England in the music magazines, NME magazine and Melody Maker, and we were getting good reviews.
Egypt was single of the weekend melody maker. And
Yeah, and they were notoriously, hard, and critically could be, could be poisonous to someone that didn't particularly appreciate. So, we never got over to England until about 86. So it was a bit of a lag between, having a few good notices in the paper in 79, but it doesn't matter. It's just a little bit odd because Live It Up was a very different sounding song, very much more an 80s sounding song, because we've been around long enough to go through all those permutations of the record business.
It was also it was difficult touring in England because we only had that one hit that they knew. So we were a one-hit band. We had to play all our other songs, but they just wanted to hear Live It Up. So that was a bit tricky.
Done a few interviews with the Scottish radio, and that's been fairly surreal too.
Well,
they want us to go and play there.
Still, you two and be billed as mental as anything.
Yeah, something like that. we're trying to dissuade them, like the fact that the singer is no longer with us, the writer of the song, and Martin's been pretty ill from the Mentals. So it's not like the Mentals are about to get back together, that's for sure.
3 o'clock in the morning, open up the door to the solitude of cars and cranes and crowded streets and stores. Oh, I'm trying not to worry. Most things will never happen. I'm sorry, but you heard it all before.
How can viewers keep updated on all things Dog Trumpet, Peter O'Doherty, or Reg Mombassa? Is there a website or Facebook page that they can go to?
Yeah, we've got a Facebook page and a website.
Because you guys are also very talented artists. And do you have some of your art featured there as well?
Yeah,
on the Dog Trumpet site, there is. But you can also just look. You could Google Reg Mombassa. You'll see a lot of stuff. Instagram. I don't do Instagram, but yeah, we've got our stuff. It's all out there. That's the thing about the internet, isn't it? It doesn't take much, just a click away.
Anyway, that's it for this episode of Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. I'd like to thank my special guests, Peter O'Doherty and Reg Mombassa, for stopping by the Blanket Fort and sharing all the information that they could on their brand new album, Great South Road. These guys are two incredibly talented chaps. I call them ordinary men with extraordinary talents. So thank you, Peter and Reg, for stopping by, and we'll see everybody on the next Beach Blanket Fort Bingo.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for having us.